Is your brain on fire? And what I mean by that, do you have brain inflammation? Well, there's a good chance you may actually have this issue, and it is affecting your whole psychology. When you look at many people who are suffering from brain fog, anxiety, depression, even psychiatric disorders, it is because they have a root cause of inflammation occurring in their body. So we want to make sure that we address that, because let me tell you, this is one of the biggest things that will turn your world upside down, and this is why I think it's such an important topic, and I love talking about it. So let's go ahead and dive in. But before we do, I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski, and welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and for all my natural health videos, go to www.drzee.tv. Now, I also want to mention that I have a new channel on YouTube, and I highly encourage you to go check it out. I will put a link in the description below and at the end of this video so that you can go and see what's happening over there. I do great illustrations to show you directly what's going on with your health and help you improve it in the best way possible using natural resources. So go over there, check it out. You'll really enjoy it. So let's go ahead and jump into this brain issue, because like I said, I love discussing this topic because I know that it is one of the most transformational things that I can help someone with. This change, if we can change your brain to be healthier, it changes everything around you, your mood, your outlook on life, everything. So let's dive into this article, and this is over on newvisionhealthcenter.com. I will also put a link to this full article in the description. That way, if you want to share it with a family member or something, or somebody who even needs it, that would be something you have access to. So the stress in today's world is unavoidable, but did you know that it can actually cause a destructive brain inflammation, and it will even cause oxidative damage. Now, with the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders in place, unemployment numbers skyrocketing, protests around the world, it's no wonder we're all more anxious than we've ever been before. And unfortunately, this level of constant stress takes a toll on your brain. And so this is something that we have to acknowledge, right? Because everybody wants to kind of look at all of these things that have happened and act as if they aren't a big deal. And they are a big deal. And I'm talking about all these world events happening around us. They're a huge deal. And when you look at the numbers of people who are suffering from like anxiety and depression and like suicidal thoughts and things of that nature, like the number is enormous. Like we see a lot of very tragic events happening around the world, and they're happening as a result of somebody developing a psychological disorder. So what do? Well, we get to the root cause of many of these psychological disorders, and that's brain inflammation. I'm telling you, I have seen some of the craziest cases of people who are struggling with their brain health, and once we actually fix the inflammation and we fix their brain function at its core level, like, it's unbelievable the transformation they have in their life. Now, the thing is, it's really crazy about it if you think of it this way. If this individual was to come to me, we see this huge positive brain transformation simply by getting to the root cause of their problem. If they were to go to a traditional doctor who's just going to give them psychiatric meds, like, their life very well could be destroyed simply because a lot of these medications are nasty. When you look at people who commit suicide, people who commit acts of suicide on others, and mass murder events and that kind of thing, well, it's typically people who are on psychiatric medications, because the side effects are that you may want to kill yourself or somebody else, which is actually very, very scary. I've talked about this before, but it's like, I've known people who are close to me who go on this stuff, and I'm like, look, you can't be on that. It's dangerous, right? So signs and symptoms of brain inflammation. Well, what is brain inflammation? Inflammation is not always a bad thing. It's a typical and natural response to an injury, okay? If you get this inflammation from like an injury when you're out there doing something physical, that's normal. If you get inflammation in a joint or something like that, that's totally normal. But the problem is that inflammation that becomes chronic is really bad. So acute inflammation, short-term inflammation is good, where chronic inflammation is something that's bad. Chronic inflammation can develop anywhere in the body, including your brain. Unlike the inflammation of an injury of arthritis, brain inflammation doesn't cause pain, since the brain has no pain receptors. And this is something that's important to realize, is this comes on quietly, and all of a sudden your world starts to turn upside down. This actually happened to me. I'll tell my story before the end of this video. This doesn't mean it's not there, causing hidden damage to your most vital organs. It's very important to know why your brain is inflamed, because this will point you in the right direction to address this and relieve the symptoms. Acute inflammation often causes noticeable symptoms like pain, redness, and swelling, but brain inflammation symptoms are usually not detectable. But here are some common symptoms associated with brain inflammation: brain fog, depression, anxiety, irritability, anger, memory loss, and fatigue. Now, when I had some really bad brain inflammation issues, I had brain fog. I would say probably a little bit of mix of depression with that. And then I definitely had memory loss and fatigue in the way of like brain fatigue. Like I could do a task for like a few minutes and my brain just already was like checked out almost immediately. And so like if I was to come and do this video and I made it like partway in, it was just like, oh, I can't focus, I can't think, right? Or maybe you're at work and you're saying, man, I had to put this, this hard task in front of me, and I've only been able to accomplish about 10 minutes of work at it, and all of a sudden I can't even focus anymore. That's a problem, and sometimes maybe that's like an hour or two and your brain's shot for the day. Like that shouldn't happen. So these symptoms can be mild, they can be severe, but either way, they are nonetheless really bad. Causes of brain inflammation. Okay, let's dive into some of these. Chronic inflammation in the body. So basically what it's saying is like, look, if you have like high C-reactive protein, if you have chronic inflammation in other areas of your body, there's a good chance it will make its way to the brain. Leaky gut issues is a very common issue that will cause brain inflammation. You can even have something called leaky brain, where the barrier around the brain is no longer protecting the brain. And so what happens with poor gut health, it will create inevitably poor brain health. So you want to make sure that you're taking any of these different gut and brain issues very seriously, because they're connected through the gut-brain axis. High blood sugar and diabetes, okay? If you are insulin resistance, then it's a huge root cause of brain inflammation. Hormone imbalances, not only thyroid hormones, but also sex hormones. Food intolerances, okay? If you are intolerant to a food, you shouldn't be eating it, okay? Like, it's crazy to me because I'll have people say like, well, if I only eat a little bit of this food, like, I don't have to run to the bathroom and I don't have that big negative response. It's like, no, you're still having a negative response, just not one that you're detecting, right? So if you are gluten intolerant, you have celiac disease, and you're still eating gluten because it's not causing some traumatic problem for you, like, you're an idiot. Like, seriously, because the reality is that it is behind the scenes causing a problem for you. It really is. And I have people tell me all the time that it's like, oh, I can have a little bit of dairy, I can have a little bit of gluten. And it's these things that are huge triggers of inflammatory disorders in the body, people are still consuming them, right? Don't consume it. Like, if a glass of milk causes you to have like excessive diarrhea, then that means any milk you will have a negative reaction to, an inflammatory reaction, an immune reaction, and it will attack your body. So don't do it. Just stay away from it. Now, chronic stress. Make sure that if you have chronic stress, you're just doing everything you can to alleviate it. Mindful meditation, going for walks outside, deep breathing exercises, and then, of course, avoid the stressful events. Like, a lot of times I think we have stressful events in our lives, and we're in a situation where we don't recognize them and recognize our ability to avoid them, and we just kind of like keep crashing into this wall of stress. So make sure that you're doing everything you can to just take those stressful events and those people who cause stress and remove it from your situation there. Environmental toxins is a huge one. I harp on chemical toxins a lot, but it's like, every time I turn around, I find more and more evidence that like chemical toxins are just ruining our bodies. So this is something to take very, very seriously. Combat brain inflammation. What do you do? Okay, so first of all, like omega-3s are really good. Vitamin B6, B12, folate, and basically the methylation group is going to be very powerful. N-acetylcysteine is good. Phosphatidylserine is a huge one. You want to make sure you're using some stuff like this. Acetyl-L-carnitine, alpha-lipoic acid, CoQ10. These are all really good. And in this article from New Vision Health Center, specifically, they are talking about a vitamin here. I'm going to go back up and scroll over. It's the Brain Bright DTX, where it has pretty much all of these different ingredients in there, and it does work very well. I use that with patients I'm working with all the time, and I recommend it to them. And people will tell me, "Hey, my brain started working better." So do understand that. Diet's a big one. Okay, so supplementation is obviously an important factor, because like when you have these issues occurring, like you got to shut them down. And obviously your diet is like the strongest tool that you have in your toolkit in order to combat this. But if you want to get results fast and put that extra healing power to the brain, then the high doses of nutrition through supplementation is going to get you where you need to be. Like, I mean, I use this all the time in practice, and that's how we get people well. So diet's a really big one. Some things that you can incorporate is like fatty fish, because it's loaded with omega-3s. Avocados, also incredibly good, rich in vitamin E, and it's also shown to protect brain cells. Broccoli, loaded with high levels of vitamin K, a very nutrient dense vegetable. Coffee is one. Kind of got to be careful with this one. If you have brain inflammation, it may not sit well with you. It's in the list because it's a really powerful antioxidant, but it's one of those things where it's like, just watch it. I'm not a person who believes you should never drink coffee. It's funny because a lot of people tell me, it's like, oh, I'm turning my health around, changing my diet, I'm fixing things up. It's like, what have you done so far? It's like, well, I quit drinking coffee. It's like, oh my gosh, coffee is probably the only antioxidant you have in your whole diet. Don't do that. But there's this idea that coffee is always bad. It's not that it's always bad. It's not that it's always good. It's just, it just depends on your situation. But coffee is one of the biggest sources of antioxidants in the Western diet. Cacao is very good, leafy greens, nuts, and really when it comes to putting this whole thing together with brain inflammation, the first thing is identifying that you have it, okay? If you're constantly having brain issues, then you have brain inflammation, almost guaranteed. And unfortunately, it's something that's so common today that I shudder to think of the future and what will happen in the way of dementia and Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative disorders, because not only is the brain inflammation bad because of the symptoms it causes, but also what it allows to happen in the brain. The brain has its own ability to detox, and when you have brain inflammation, you lose that ability. So you start to store more toxins in your fatty tissues, in your entire body, but specifically your brain, which is a fatty tissue. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can in order to turn this around. Like I said, this stuff shows up in the common symptoms that I mentioned: the brain fog, the anxiety, the depression, the bipolar disorder. Like, honestly, I wish like psychiatrists and psychologists started most of their work by just focusing on reducing brain inflammation, because they'd help so many people. And it's like, look, if you helped somebody detox their brain and helped them with brain inflammation and it still wasn't working, then okay, then look to the medication. But like that, they should just have to go through those hoops first in order to actually go to the medicinal route that has a lot of negative side effects. So that's how you want to look at this. Focus on an anti-inflammatory diet, focus on the supplementation that we mentioned, and then from there, go in and focus on reducing stress and some of the lifestyle issues as well. You put that all together, you will make your brain function well. And the thing that's crazy is that when you decrease brain inflammation, it's like somebody flipped a switch and your brain all of a sudden is turned on and it's working, and it is fantastic. I went through this myself where I like literally had no memory. Brain fatigue was awful. Brain fog was awful. And once I got that turned around, it was just amazing to me because my retention was amazing. Like my thoughts and clarity of thought was just amazing. My mood was amazing. It literally changed my whole life around me. And that's why I'm very passionate about this subject, because especially if you're someone like me who's had some autoimmune issues over the years, like these inflammatory problems are just chronic in your body. It's like they're just always waiting for you to slip up and not have the perfect diet and not do the perfect things. The next thing you know, they're flaring up again. And so you have to be very diligent about this type of problem because it can really spiral out of control. And I would hate for that to happen to you. Go and check out my new channel, and you can check it out right here by clicking on the new channel button or going in the description and clicking on the link there. I hope to see you over there.